Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Rian Immigrant Center J1 Visa Information Session. It's great to see so many of you join us today, and I can see lots more people joining as I speak. That's fantastic. Let me begin by introducing myself. My name is Rian McGrillen, and I work in Queen's Global Opportunities team. For today's session, we are kindly joined by Mr. Jude Clark from the Rian Immigrant Center, and Jude is going to give you a lot of information on the programs that they offer and the support that they provide. At this stage, I would also like to draw your attention to the chat function. So if at any stage you have any questions, please add them to chat and we'll cover them throughout the session and also at the end of the session. So Jude, can I please ask you to turn your camera on? Jude, thanks very much for joining us today.
Okay, thank you, Rory. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for having me here to present to the students. It's always a pleasure.
You're very welcome.
Well, hello, everybody. It's good to have you all here today to learn some more about the J1 graduate visa program to the United States. As Rory just mentioned, I am from Rian Immigrant Center based in Boston, in Massachusetts. Just give you a little bit about myself to get things off and running. I'm the Director of Learning Exchange Programs in our centre, based in Boston, but I'm actually based in County Antrim, so just a few miles from where you are all seated right now. Our centre was originally known as the Irish International Immigrant Center. It was formed 31 years ago by Irish immigrants to help Irish immigrants. But now we help people from all nations with whatever immigration issues or citizenship issues they have in the city of Boston. So I look after our Irish activities, including relationships with the universities and so on there, and presentations like this to yourselves. I'm actually a Queen's University graduate myself, and to really get under the skin of who I am, it's you really just need to understand me as a sports mad person. I play all sports I can get my hands on, interested in anything like that. But today with you here, I'm going to discuss the year-long J1 graduate visa program to the United States. And if anyone has any questions, you can stick them in the chat there, as Rory mentioned, and we can maybe try and blend them in to the presentation as we go along. So the first place we're going to start is this whole coronavirus, COVID situation. I mean, you want to get that out of the way before we proceed with all the good news. So obviously it's been with us since March 2020. I was actually in the Student Guidance Center there with Rory and a bunch of students on the day that it was announced. I just left the presentation. I was walking down Elmwood Avenue when I got the call to say that the visa program was shutting down. So basically the US travel ban was in place then from March. It lifted on the 8th of November, so you're just looking at a month there now. And on top of that, the US consulate in Belfast and the US embassy in Dublin have both reopened for visa appointments at this stage. Now, while I say they've reopened for visa appointments, they're not fully operational in terms of like being back to the capacity that they were pre-COVID or pre-March 2020. They are doing the appointments, but it's on, like some restrictions due to COVID and social distancing and things like that, which are then meaning that they're on reduced numbers of appointments. So they just wouldn't be as frequent as before, but so far so good. We've had a few in and out and have got their visas already at this stage, so we've only been processing them for 4 or 5 weeks. We do expect our visa program to be fully operational in 2022, so we will take a while ourselves to rebuild to what we were in March 2020 in terms of staffing and visa output in terms of how many graduates we can actually help. We used to be up to 500, but in 2022 it's more likely to be up to about 300. One very important thing there is you got to be fully vaccinated to even consider going to the United States. In fact, it's just announced yesterday or the day before that you also have to provide a test within 24 hours of travel. So I just haven't got that added on there in that slide, but that is the case as of yesterday. Now, the coronavirus or COVID situation can change at any point, so while I'm saying that now, that could change next week. There could be other restrictions brought in or whatever. But moving on to the good news. This is just a bunch of, actually, there's 3 or 4 Queen's students in this one, a couple from Queen's and a couple from Ulster University in this photograph. And this is what the visa program's all about. It's about getting out there and discovering America and exploring America and bringing back these memories and having a wonderful experience in the United States. Not just work experience, but also a wonderful life experience. It's, an adventure for, lifetime memories will be made. So what is the J1 Irish Work and Travel Visa, which is commonly referred to as the J1 Graduate Visa? You hear people talking about the Graduate Visa in the corridors of the university. This is what they're talking about. It's the J1 Irish Work and Travel. Okay, it's an opportunity to live in the United States for up to a year. You do have a 30-day grace period at either end, so you can arrive 30 days before your actual visa start date, and you can remain in the US up to 30 days after your visa end date, so maximum 14 months. You can travel to the United States without work lined up. Now that is for graduates with Irish passports only. If you do not have an Irish passport, that could be a UK passport, or it could be an Indian passport or whatever. We accept applications from anyone now who, as long as you're studying at an Irish university, north or south, you have any passport, so long as you have a placement preset. So if a placement's preset, and say you're studying at Queen's and you have, like I said, there an Indian passport or a Spanish passport or whatever, then we can process those applications. But if you have the Irish passport, it gives you the additional benefit in being able to travel to the United States without work lined up. Now you might think, well, how's that a benefit? Well, it is very difficult to find a placement in the States before you go to the States. It has to be a paid placement, has to be a minimum $15 an hour so you'll have enough to live on in your area of study, so it's not that easy. Some people do achieve that. Some people do find the placements through the help of their universities, or if you're a graduate, then it's through your own hard work. So while it does happen, it's not the highest percentage of numbers. The highest percentage of numbers would be like 90% of our visa applicants will travel to the States without work lined up. So you gain, like I said, a year's work experience in your area of study. Fantastic piece of work experience. It's going to sit at the top of your resume or CV and really jump off the page whenever you're speaking with employers and trying to build your career whenever you get back home to Ireland, UK, or whatever. So it's a 120-day opportunity to find work. It used to be 90, but we've added 30 days on just in case there's any additional difficulties due to COVID, or some organizations partially working remotely and so on. The businesses in America are getting back into the office and have been since about August, September. But some, like our organization, for example, you might find that half the staff are in the office a couple of days and half the staff are working from home a couple of days and so on. So just navigating that, that's why we've added the 30 days on. So who's eligible? It's graduates within 1 year of your graduation scroll date. So if you're a final year student right now, you're eligible for the visa program as soon as you finish your studies. And the other eligibility is students with the placements preset. So any third year students who are with a placement in New York starting February, for example, you're eligible to apply. Normally we take the applications just as they come to us in terms of whether you've got work lined up or whether you haven't work lined up. But we've just reopened the visa program really 1st of November, so it's only about 5 weeks. And just in this beginning this first period, we are only processing the applications from those who have placements preset. It kind of makes sense on many levels. I don't really need to go into it too much, but these are the guys that have actually either went to the effort of finding a placement, so they're being rewarded for that, or they have deadlines with their universities there in terms of they need to be out there by the 1st of February or whatever to satisfy the needs of their placement year. So we're processing them, and once we get past into the new year, then we will start opening up applications for those without work lined up. So probably most of the people on this call are final year students, I would imagine. You would be expecting to start your application around March or April of next year. The visa application process takes about 12 weeks. So you need to just plan ahead to when you think you're going to be needing to travel, and then apply at that point. Important point there at the bottom is at this point is to check your passports and make sure that, say you're starting your visa in September 2022, it needs to run 6 months past the end date. So the end date would be September 2023. Therefore, your passport needs to run to at least February 2024. Okay, don't forget there, you can throw any questions in as we move along there, folks. So our 2022 visa program, I just mentioned there, we're prioritizing applications from students and graduates with placements preset. Another important point there is the mail is taking much longer now. That's why we used to say about 8 weeks to process an application. It's pushed out now to about 12, and we're just discovering this as we've opened up. That the mail from the United States to Ireland and the UK is taking 3-4 weeks. So we have to add that on to the whole application process time, because we have to send stuff from Boston over to here for you to take to the embassy or the consulate. I suppose the other thing about 2022 is why we're being positive about it and looking forward to it and hoping everything's going to go perfectly well. There is always the possibility of this COVID thing could change the rules at any moment. So whenever we accept your application, we'll be accepting it in good faith that we're going to get processed, get you out to the States. But we'll keep you informed as we go along. So how do you prepare then? If you're thinking about traveling to America and you're thinking, right, I'm going to graduate next July, I'm going to travel to Boston or New York next September or October, you're thinking, well, what should I be doing at this point besides attending this presentation? Well, this is the time now to start your preparation for your visa program. We do not know, but we could be in a scenario in May, for example, where we might still be taking prioritizing applications from people who have placements preset. Okay, it's unlikely, but it is possible. So the more effort you put into finding a placement now at this point, the better. Even if we don't enforce that or insist on, or prioritize, sorry is the right word, prioritize applications with placements preset, it's still better for you to have all this preparation done. Like, so for example, build a spreadsheet with at least 100 entries of employers in the city that you're going to. So say you're a marketing graduate and you're going to New York. Well, stick in marketing New York or any company. Most companies nowadays have marketing departments or whatever. So you're basically researching at least 100 employers in your area of study in that city. Networking, you've got to start looking into networking, register for events like, the Irish Network Boston or Irish Network New York or New York Irish Business Association and so on, things like this, the Irish Consulate, the UK Consulate in any of these cities. Start networking with these groups, get onto their websites, join their events, register for their events and so on, be part of them, because a lot of them are now, these events are done by this type of presentation. They're Zoom, so you could be anywhere in the world. You don't even need to be in New York or Boston to be building your network in that sense. You can join in one of these events like this and you can add in a question or a chat. There could be employers on that event. I know for a fact that the Irish Consulate First Friday events in Boston, there loads of employers go to that event because I've been at it myself, and they're now online. So there might be 10 employers at that, and you could post a question in the chat to say, look, I'm an Irish J1 visa applicant. I'll be coming over in September. I'll be seeking work, etc., etc. That it's basically you make your own luck that way, you know. So, but if you're sitting thinking that I'm going to go to America next summer and wing it and hope for the best, that's when things can get difficult for you, and you can end up struggling, running out of money, not finding a job, and then having to come home. My advice is start your research now. Get your CV converted into a US resume. Yesterday I asked a bunch of marketing graduates to send me their resume, and they sent me like 3 and 4 page CVs. In America, it's a 1-page resume. I can share that with Rory after this, and it can be fired out to you all, everyone there that's attending this event. Also, the LinkedIn Start Guide, I can share that. It can also be sent out to everybody. These are just starting points, you know, registering for LinkedIn, getting your resume in order, starting your networking, and building your research. You know, if you can do those 4 things, then you're setting yourself up for success, you know. But if you don't do those 4 things, then realistically in 2022, we will not even accept an application if these things aren't in place. But part of the reason for this is we used to have a dedicated member of our team who focused 100% on helping people find work on these visa programs. But with the COVID and the impact on our staff and so on, we've had to make this adjustment in our program. And the adjustment is basically emphasizing the importance of this more to you. This is something you need to be heavily invested in. So then a couple of months before you travel, you'll reach out to the employer, and you'll send them that resume, you'll connect with them on LinkedIn, you'll tell them what networking you've done, and you'll ask them, look, I'm a marketing graduate, and I'm a digital marketing graduate or whatever, I'm interested in the music industry or whatever the case may be, and I see that that's your industry, I'd be really interested in talking to you, etc., etc. You know, cover letter, resume, cover letter tailored to that organization. And you never know your luck. You make your own luck. Some of the employers might get back to you, some might not. But all you need is one to get back with a positive, yeah, well, sure, let's meet or let's chat or we could do a Zoom call or whatever. And that's the other thing about connecting with the employers. You don't have to wait until you're in America to do it. You know, you can send your resume and your cover letter by email to an employer now. And as part of that cover letter, you could put at the bottom of it, you know, I'm happy to meet on Zoom or whatever to discuss how I could help your business. You know, so you make it sound like you have something really positive to offer them that's gonna attract them to you or make them want to talk to you, you know. So that slide there is actually the most important slide in terms of your preparation and understanding what you need to do before you even apply for a visa. Okay, the bottom line's pretty blunt, but it is the way it is. I mean, little effort in terms of the preparation is a clear indicator to us that there may be little effort then given or, you know, applied whenever you would get to the United States. So we will not be accepting those applications. It's about giving yourself the best opportunity in the States, and you need to prepare in this way. Here's Rory coming in, I believe, with maybe a question or something that someone's put in. Rory, I think you're muted.
You think I would know by now. So Jimmy's asked a good question. Does the placement or job have to be on the East Coast, or can it be anywhere?
That's a very good question, Jimmy. So yeah, it can be anywhere. It can be in Hawaii if you want. Any state in the United States, West Coast, Central, doesn't matter. Anywhere at all in the 50 United States.
Very good. Thank you. The second one from David is, am I able to get another J1 if I have already been out to the US on one before?
Yeah, I presume that might have been as a student on a third-year placement, maybe. If so, yeah, you can do this particular visa once as a student and then once as a graduate of using the same degree, okay? But you can also do it once with your undergrad, and then you can do it once after you graduate from like a master's. So yeah, the short answer is yes, you can do it twice. There's certain little conditions on it.
Great. I'll keep an eye on the questions. You made reference to sharing resources there. We're happy to do that, and we can do that early next week, just when we pull together a recording and any resources you have. So I'll let you continue.
All right, thanks, Rory. Yeah, just on that question that Rory asked there about doing the visa again, we actually have a Queen's grad who helped us in our last presentation here, who did the visa 2 years ago as a third-year placement, and he's going back now in January, I believe, or the start of February, and we're processing his application at the minute, and he's going back to New York. So if that question that was asked there, if that person is going back to the exact same employer, the condition there is that you have to be doing duties that are above the level that you were doing in your first visa program. So, for example, if you were like a marketing assistant in your first visa, but then in this visa program, you expected to be stepping that up to maybe be working on marketing projects, you know, just building on it. That's because the embassy or the consulate expect you to be building, progressing, as opposed to just going back to doing the exact same job. So, yeah, that's the preparation. What help do we give in terms of the job search? Well, I mentioned there that it's not the way it used to be, but we still help. You know, we still have a database of employers that we will share after you make your application. We provide, you know, the research advice and networking advice, some of the stuff that I've already been over, but we'll provide like documents and so on it, converting your CV to a US style resume. It's all about that preparation. You know, we will help you be as best prepared as you can be. The three important key pieces of information that we look for whenever you're applying with us is where in the United States is it you're planning on going to? For example, Boston. When is your visa due to start? For example, 1st of September 2022. And what's your area of study? Marketing. So the reason why we ask for that is sometimes, like last week there, I got an email from an employer in New York City who has taken our interns in the past, and she sent me an email with a marketing and communications role in her company in New York. Now she's wanting it to start in January or February, so it wouldn't be any use to most of the people in this call. But that's an example of why we look for that information. Where is it you're looking to go to? When's your visa due to start, and what's your area of study? If we get an email like that from an employer, then we just pick out all the ones that sort of would help, and we send that email to you. So yesterday I got 5 resumes in for that role, and I sent the 5 resumes to my friend Meredith in New York. Meredith will hopefully pick one of those 5, and that person will get a great marketing role in New York City for a year. And they'll not believe their luck in terms of how it worked out, but that's the little connection that we can make. Now, we can't promise that in every case for everybody, but it's an example of what we can do. Even if we don't get an opportunity like that, we can still connect you with employers. Again, if you're going to Boston and it's a marketing role, or if you're going to San Francisco and it's an engineering role, for example, well, we can look through our database of employers who have taken J1s in the past, and we can say, okay, there is 5 mechanical engineering employers in the San Francisco area. Here's their contact details. You go and follow up and connect with them and try and get a job there. That's the main area that we can help in. You know, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is absolutely crucial to your visa program in terms of not only your work experience, but how you enjoy your time in the States. You know, if you've got a job Monday to Friday and you're earning, it's in your area of study, well, everything's great. You'll have 52 weekends in the year to enjoy yourself in your own leisure time beyond that. And this is an example of what you can be doing on one of those weekends. This photograph was taken on my last trip, actually, to Boston, February 2020. You can see me in that picture there. And what I do is I connect with the local universities there in Boston. I actually got the email in yesterday from this university, Boston University, and get things like, tickets for games and things like that. But you can do this no matter where you go in the States, San Francisco, Chicago. Go out and experience the country and go to basketball games and baseball games and try and see as much of the country as you can, national parks and so on. In this photograph, actually, there is a couple. There's at least two Queen's grads in there on the left-hand side of that photo. Queen's grads now, at the time they were students. So yeah, we encourage everybody that comes on our visa program to make the most of the experience and get out and see as much of America as you can do. So just a few other little networking tips there. This is very important, and just want to emphasize that whenever I went to America, first 2009, I went out to America. Networking was like foreign language to me. I just, here it wasn't a thing that I had ever experienced. Obviously, it'd been at events where you networked with people and you didn't realize you were doing it, but in America, it goes to a whole new level. There will be networking events that are organized specifically just for people to network, to meet, to bond, and to discuss, things that they're all familiar with. Like, for example, marketing. Let's stick with the marketing example. Like, there could be a marketing networking group in San Francisco or Chicago or Miami or wherever you're going. Well, you want to be registering for that. It might cost you $50 to register or whatever, but so big deal. You jump in there and you register. There's, like I mentioned, Irish Network. I've put the link in there on that slide. All these other places, San Francisco, the consulate there, New York consulates, British and Irish consulates, alumni events, for example, like, depending on where you're going. In America, does QUB have an alumni branch in that city or near the city? Well, if so, yeah, register there, but don't leave it till you go to America. Register now. If you are, definitely planning on going to the States. The more things you can connect with there through your networking, the better it's going to be for you. Not just for finding a job, but for connecting with people and social networking and so on. And for those who are traveling alone, it's critical in terms of building up your social groups as well. Outreach. Once you connect with all these people, once you get friendly with them, arrange meetings. Arrange meetings, be it in America, meeting for coffee or over Zoom or whatever. Social media. There's a link there. It's very useful, folks, in terms of the best ways to use social media. I touch on this every time I do a presentation because I've seen it. I've seen this and experienced it in people applying for our visa program, where their social media is all over the place. They've maybe been set up 7, 8, 9 years ago when they were 12 or 13 years old, and it's sort of more of a fun thing, bit of crack, which is great. But once you're, and finally you're especially, and you're sort of setting yourself up for being introduced and connecting with employers, you need all this sort of stuff to be tidied up and in order, make it more professional as opposed to, just for the crack type of thing. And be careful how you present yourself on social media as well. I'm not saying it all has to be professional, but you just have to think, is this something that could trip me up whenever I'm connecting with an employer or wanting to connect with an employer and they stick my name into Google or whatever and this pops up? Is this what I want them to see? I put in a mad example there of an email address, which, believe it or not, I've seen some crazy email addresses over the years. I put that one in there. I think it's party on all night and forget to get up for work at gmail.com. It can trip you up. It's a bit of fun. I just put that in there, but it's an example of what I'm talking about. The other thing is simply take a class, register, play a sport, meet people. There's a link there. It's very useful as well as how to make friends in a new city. Not everybody goes on these visa programs in groups of 2s or 3s or 4s. We get lots and lots of people who travel on their own. So all of this stuff is very, very useful in that sense. What are visa costs? Well, our fee hasn't shifted. There's Rory coming in, a couple of questions here.
But just before we move on to the next slide, Jude, there's a few questions in there. So the first one was from David, and it is, have you seen many mechanical engineers going on a J1 for their sandwich placement year in your experience?
We've had a couple of mechanical engineers. Yeah, I believe we've had some from Queen's. I would need to check. I would need to check back through, but yes, we've had some. I think we might have had some from
some in Texas,
one of the universities down south as well, UL or maybe UCC. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we have. Yeah. Actually, the girl in the picture, one of the pictures there, the basketball picture, not the Queen's student, but another one. She worked in a mechanical engineering role in Boston. So yeah, we have, David. The answer is, and many graduates in that area of study.
Very good. Evie has asked, can I go to the USA before my graduation? So potentially moving out in June, but the graduation would be in August.
Yes, I take it Amy means to start her visa program. Yeah. So in that case, if you're a graduate, we accept your application based on the date on your graduation scroll. But if you haven't got that yet, well then you'll provide a letter from the university to state, I've just completed my studies in June. I'm expected to graduate in August, and we can process your application based on that letter.
Yep. So if that's the case, Evie or any other students listening today, contact Go Global, and it'll either be a letter from your school, or it'll be a letter from admissions, but we can figure that, who provides that letter out at another stage if required. And Jamie has asked, have you seen many history and politics graduates go to the States? Do you have any examples of jobs they went for?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Jamie. Obviously, in all walks of life, some things are easier than others and some are more difficult. And we can see that in terms of the areas of study. So I refer to marketing quite a bit there because, like I said earlier in the presentation, most employers have some marketing of some capacity to do. There could be a big multinational company with a huge marketing department, or there could be a small 10-person business with one person looking after the marketing. So what I'm saying there is that marketing positions or business type roles are more frequent and easier to get. History and politics, on the other hand, would be one of the areas of study that we would classify as being more difficult to find work in. And for students of areas of study like history and politics, we would really be emphasizing the research end more so to you, because those opportunities are trickier to find. But you asked for a couple of examples. People do find placements. So for example, in the politics side of it, it could be working in a senator's office in a paid internship. It could be working in a city hall, for example, in a paid internship. We've seen this a few times. On the history side of it, it could be working in a museum, for example. Like the first place that springs to mind is there's an Irish Famine Museum in Connecticut, in New England. That's a classic example of where you could use your history degree, or any other museum in the United States. But there are just a couple of examples. But yeah, if you scratch the surface of it, you really dig into what opportunities there are for me, yet you will find that there are opportunities in history and politics and most study areas.
That's great. Thank you, Jude.
Okay, so the cost there, yeah. So it's $1,150 US dollars, which works out about somewhere in the region of about 800 pounds at this moment. It used to be a lot less, but the exchange rate isn't so good now since COVID. But so that's our fee. That is for processing the application, managing your visa program from start to finish, and dealing with everything in between. The CVIS fee, which is a database that you must register for, is $220. And then there's a US Embassy fee or consulate in Belfast, $160. And your insurance is about $250. So if you add all that up, it's about probably about £1,300 or 1,200 or thereabouts pounds for your fees, and then your flights on top of that. But my advice about the costs is, the roles that we try to connect people with is minimum $15. I mentioned that earlier. Someone yesterday reported they're getting $40 an hour. Another person reported 30, and then of course someone else reported they're getting 15. So we see a wide range of well-paid positions. We're not guaranteeing you'll be one of those better paid positions, but what I'm saying is that the pay in America for an entry-level position for a graduate is higher, just the same as the rent costs in America are higher, but the pay is higher. So I wouldn't worry so much about the visa cost. It's something that has to be done, but once you get there, you might find that you're earning more than you'd be earning in a similar role in Belfast. So this is our friend Shauna from UCC. I like to keep this slide in all my presentations because it just delivers on everything that I've been talking about earlier on. Shauna, UCC graduate in genetics, and she went to Boston on her own. And the reason why she went to Boston was because she identified Boston as a major hub for scientific research and so on, biomedical science and genetics. And she got to Boston and she knew nobody and started her networking. One thing that she did was she signed up for a networking organization in Boston called Women Accelerators. And that was set up to empower women in business and science. So within a week or two of registering and going to her first meeting, Shauna volunteered with the group and did an event with them, met a few people, and next thing you know, she's in a great, well-paid job working for a top Boston scientific research center. Shauna made her own luck, and that's what it's all about, She went over there with nothing, and her expectations were whatever, but she just made her own luck, and that's what we encourage everybody to do on our visa program. If you're unsure about where you might be thinking of going now, the United States is a huge country, lots of wonderful cities and places to go. But my recommendation is simple. It's always, if you're in doubt, go to Boston. If you're sitting on the fence and I don't really know, I can't decide, go to Boston. I lived there for nearly 5 years, and I can tell you it's a wonderful place. It's got great summers and great winters if you like your skiing, and so on. It's a great business center. It's right on the coast. It's only a 5-hour time difference from home, so you can communicate easily with home, and so on. But there's lots and lots of positives, and then the main positive is that we're based there. Our office is in downtown Boston, so you can come in, meet our team, discuss anything that's going on. If there's any problems, we're right there to help you. We can also integrate you into our social events and sort of invite you along to them, and things like the basketball that I mentioned earlier on. But we can also connect you with employers so much easier, face-to-face meetings with employers if you come to Boston. Most people go to New York, but that's fine. But I would be recommending Boston. So there's the contacts. There's our website. You can jump on there. It's Rian J1. Rory, you're coming in here with a question.
Yeah, just a few questions came through. So Lee has asked, just wondering, do you see many nursing students heading over on the J1 visa?
Okay, so I'm sorry if this has wasted your time somewhat, Leah, but nursing is one of the areas that's excluded on our visa program. Anything that's medical, dentistry, nursing is excluded on the visa program. There is a separate visa for nursing, same as teachers. There's a separate visa for teachers. So unfortunately, no, there's no nursing on our visa program.
Okay, thanks, Jude. The second one was, if the placement is remote, can I still travel?
Yeah, well, you're expected to be starting your placement that it's not fully remote. Now, there is an expectation that there is going to be some level of remote working for anybody that's starting a placement in the United States. So that there was communication from the US State Department about this probably about 5 months ago, Rory. So it hasn't been updated since, but that communication was that you can't start a placement 100% remote. Okay, there needs to be in the office. You need to be in the office a certain amount of the time, and that makes sense because it's part of this visa is about understanding and soaking up US culture. But it's not just US culture in terms of sports and museums and so on. It's the office culture, the working environment, and so on. And you can't really soak that up as much if you're sitting in your bedroom working. So yeah, you need to be on some level in and out of the office. 3 days a week or whatever, yeah, working remotely too, that would be fine.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that the US companies are starting to make the move back to offices and have been. So that, again, that could change quickly as well under certain circumstances.
That could change, Rory. And what happened whenever COVID hit was we had so many hundreds of graduates in the States. Many were from Queens and Ulster as well. And once COVID hit, they were hit with a decision. What do we do? Do we stay or do we go? And a lot of people went home at that point, but a lot of people stayed and shifted from the full office working environment to a fully remote working environment. And that was acceptable. That was allowed, because obviously the circumstances at the time, the US State Department wasn't going to just end everybody's visa, but that could happen again. And if that were to happen again, then working remote 100% in that set of circumstances would be acceptable.
Thank you. Okay, I'll let you continue on there.
Okay, thanks, Rory. So the last slide here really is the contact details. It's the website address there at Rian J1. You can go on there and get some useful information on the visa program. Any inquiries, if you want to ask me any questions after or if something pops into your head, there's the email address there for the visa program. And that telephone number there is my mobile here. So as I said, I'm based in County Antrim. So that's a UK mobile number there. You can just call me or text me or whatever. I'm happy to have a chat with you about anything to do with the visa program. So that really, yeah, I'll just finish with the last picture there. Again, it's a great picture of people having fun. They're all out, a bunch of J1s. Everybody's a J1 in that photo apart from Sean in the middle with the really red jersey and the guys who are photobombing in behind. But all the girls there at the front are all J1s out having a great time at a Boston Red Sox game. That's what it's all about, having fun, but building on a great piece of work experience for a year. So if anybody has any other questions now we can open up completely to the chat, and I'm happy to discuss anything with you here now at this point.
Yeah, I'll just keep an eye in the chat, but whilst we're waiting, just a question you mentioned earlier with myself that you had the Rian Immigrant Center director over. Did he give you any indication what's happening on the ground in the US? Are people getting back to restaurants and sort of day-to-day life? Or
yeah, well, I mean, America it's a different place than here in terms of laws, Rory. So like if a law's introduced here, it covers like the 6 counties here or whatever, Northern Ireland, but and if it's down south, it's all over. In the States, you have federal law, which is like can be imposed, but it boils down to which state you go to. So the state of Massachusetts might have different rules regarding COVID restrictions than the state of New York or the state of California or Florida or whatever. So it can depend on where you go. So there's no sort of hard and fast answer on it. But having said that, things in America have been opening up. The American, America is built on its business and its commercialization and so on. It wants everything open. It wants its industries and businesses operating fully. So what I found is that everything opened up there before it opened up here, So in terms of our lockdown and so on, it was much shorter in America. It ended earlier in America and so on. Well, Massachusetts anyway. But wherever you're planning on going to, it's a good idea to go in and check the state house for that state and see what the current rules are.
Just get an indication. So a few questions come through. So Ruth has asked, do job roles have to be specific? I'm a business graduate, so wouldn't know what specifically I would focus the job search on.
Yeah, so business degree is the best degree to come on the visa program with, because you've studied so much. I mean, you've studied everything from HR to marketing to finance to PR and so on. But really, it boils down to there is, either what you majored in, what was your main focus, or coming out of your degree, what is it you really want to do? Is it PR? Is it finance? Is it accounting? So there's got to be one area of the business degree that you're really more interested in or studied more modules in throughout your degree. So that's where you'd be looking to zone in on and get your internship in. You want to make the visa program work to build upon your study and launch your career. So it's up. Part of your skill is making that decision too. About what type of organization do I want to work for and what particular role. But the rule for the visa is that your area of study for your placement must match your area of study for your degree. But it's a good question because business is so broad.
Gives you a bit of flexibility. So Mark has asked, how difficult would it say to get a placement in engineering in some different cities? So, for example, in San Francisco and Chicago.
Well, engineering is one of those industries, Mark, where you find that lots of Irish people work in some different industries. Irish people all over the United States, but going back generations, we find anyway in Boston and San Francisco and Chicago, New York as well, big time in New York. Lots of engineering companies are either some of them are owned or people of Irish American heritage or whatever have so prominent positions in these organizations, and we're well connected with quite a few of them who have hired our J1s over the years. So I don't really think it matters so much which city you're planning on going to. There is pretty much a strong chance that there's going to be a connection that we might have that we can pass to you in any of the major cities in the US, and anything to do with construction management or any of the engineering disciplines.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so interesting one from Jamie. How difficult would it be to get housing sorted? I just know how difficult it is to get housing sorted here in Ireland. I was wondering, is it the same in the States?
Yeah, it's another good question. Housing is on you, so it's up to you. And a good example I always give as to why that is because we used to offer some assistance with it, but then I joke about it in that I like a balcony or a grass garden, and the next person doesn't want that or doesn't like that. So it's each to their own in terms of what you want out of your living quarters. And the other thing is how much you're going to pay. So again, this comes down to that research thing again. Before you head over, my advice is always, like, for example, if you're heading over, you're flying over on the 1st of August, your visa start date is like the 20th of August. You've got like 3 weeks there. I would be booking into like an Airbnb or a cheap hotel or something like that there for like a week anyway. And then as soon as you get there, you're hitting the ground running, going out and viewing different apartments and so on. But you need to do that before you leave here. You need to be sort of lining up those viewings and so that you can hit the ground running. If you're going to Boston, there's always, not at the minute now, I'm speaking here about ordinary times. At the minute, we don't have any J1s in Boston or New York, but what we do a lot of the time is, if you're heading to New York or Boston on your own, we might send an email to some of the guys that are already there, renting places, and we'll say, look, this one's coming over on their own. They're traveling over next week. Would you be able to sort of help them out or meet them and maybe see if there's any rooms in your place and so on? And we can help with that end of it, But it is a very good question and very important point that you need to plan for. Connecting with someone who's already been there or someone who's going, like, for example, the guy there that I was talking about earlier who's going out to New York, I know that he's got loads of connections in New York, and if someone was going to New York, I'd be able to say, here, could you maybe connect there or whatever. So we can help a little bit with that, but it is tough. It's not straightforward.
And certainly any international program we promote, we would always say, if you can connect with someone who is currently doing it or has been on it before, then that's invaluable information and first-hand resources. Evie has asked, if I want to stay in the US indefinitely, would this visa be the best way of making that happen?
Well, it would be a very good first step for you, Evie. I mean, this visa gets you to the United States for 1 year. It is only for 1 year, so it can't be extended in any way, this visa. But I'd be lying to you if I said that it would be ultimately the end of the road. The US State Department advises us, not to be promoting long-term stays on this visa program. But like I said, I'd be lying to you if I said that it didn't happen. Some people go on the visa program and get married, for example. Another person might go on and their employer sees that the work they're doing is so critical or so good to their business, that employer might sponsor the person that's on our visa, and that then becomes like a 3-year H-1B visa or whatever. So there are options there, It depends. I guess the harder you work in your placement and the more you're liked by your employer, the better your chances in that question.
Thank you very much, Jude.
If Eva wants to follow up with me by email on that, Rory, I could give her a more detailed answer.
Very good. Guys, if you do have any questions, certainly reach out to Jude and the guys on that email address, so j1iwt@riancenter.org. I can't see any more questions coming in at this stage. So at this point, I just want to say, Jude, thank you very much for taking the time to share the information. As I suppose at the start, I didn't really say that, over the years, the centre and yourself have been very supportive to hundreds of Queen's students, providing advice, guidance, and support both before and during their times in the US. And we obviously really appreciate it. So thank you very much again for today.
All right. Thank you very much, Rory. And thanks everybody for coming along and listening. And hopefully I've been able to help you with the questions and help maybe inspire you to go ahead and pursue the visa to go to the United States. As always, thanks, Rory, and thanks, Queen's University, for having us on here to speak to the students.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.